I decided to start a new life without you. This phrase hung in the air of the refined restaurant where we had gathered to celebrate my daughter's graduation from college. Gregory, who had been my husband for 28 years, stood holding his raised sparkling wine, his announcement taking the place of the tribute he ought to have been giving for Amelia's achievement. The noise of silverware ceased. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. 50 pairs of eyes moved back and forth between Gregory and me, waiting for my reaction. The crying, the shouting, the dramatic exit everyone expected. Instead, I showed a smile. I value your honesty. My name is Bianca Caldwell. I am 54 years old, and until this specific moment, I had been playing the role of the devoted wife and mother perfectly. I put aside my own career aspirations to support Gregory through 3 business attempts, 2 job changes, and many periods of self-exploration. I raised our gifted daughter, Amelia, who was seated beside me right now, her graduation cap still resting on her head, her expression frozen in surprise. In my peripheral view, I noticed Cassandra Wells, Gregory's much younger mistress, shifting restlessly at a table in the back where she was sitting with people I had considered friends for a long time. These same friends were clearly aware of the affair, yet they never thought to tell me. This was the same Cassandra who attended our December parties, who had even called me before for advice concerning her career. With practiced calmness, I reached into my handbag and pulled out a sealed package, tinted ivory. I placed it gently next to Gregory's plate. "What is this?" he asked, his triumphant expression faltering. "Something for you to look at later," I replied, keeping my voice even. I turned my focus to Amelia, whose skin had turned pale. I kissed her cheek. "I am so proud of you, sweetheart. This moment is still dedicated to your success." Afterward, I stood up, smoothed my dress, and addressed our stunned guests. "Please enjoy your meal. I hope you all have a lovely afternoon." Following this, I left the restaurant, my back straight, feeling 50 pairs of eyes following my path. The massive door swung shut behind me, stopping the beginning of anxious murmurs. Outside the building, the heat of the Augusta summer hit me like a wall, but I welcomed it. For the first time in many years, I could breathe freely. Behind me, I heard the restaurant door opening and shutting loudly, along with Gregory's voice, which was no longer confident, but loud and frantic. "Bianca, what on earth is this? What have you done?" I kept walking, allowing myself a slight grin. The container I had handed him contained the beginning of my counterattack, which I had been meticulously preparing for months. I had always been the practical person in our relationship. While Gregory thought big and took chances, I maintained the stability our family needed. I was the one who saved money for Amelia's education when Gregory made bad investment decisions in his friend S restaurant project. I was the one who worked extra hours as a financial controller at Truvant Corp when his midlife crisis led him to quit his stable job to follow his passion, selling handcrafted furniture. A passion that lasted only about 6 months before he lost interest. My own ambition, starting a financial consulting firm for women, was constantly delayed after Amelia finishes school. I promised myself. When Gregory finally found consistency 3 months earlier, I noticed anomalies in our joint bank accounts. Small transfers to an account I didn't recognize. Having spent 2 decades managing our family's finances, these irregularities looked like warning signs. I could have confronted Gregory immediately, but something held me back. Perhaps it was intuition, or perhaps it was the growing distance between us over the last year. Instead, I began investigating secretly. What I discovered was much worse than I had imagined. Gregory had been systematically moving funds into a separate account for over a year. Furthermore, he had been taking Cassandra to expensive restaurants, buying jewelry, and looking at beachfront property, all while telling me we needed to cut back on spending for our retirement. Then came the text messages I found when Gregory left his phone unlocked. Messages about their new life together. Messages about how he was finally getting out. Messages about their plans for the event after Amelia's graduation. The exact event he had chosen to make his major announcement about leaving our marriage. What Gregory had forgotten, or perhaps never fully grasped, was that I had been a financial professional for 30 years. I understood monetary systems. I knew how to trace assets, and, most importantly, I remembered the prenuptial agreement we had signed 28 years prior when I held more family assets than he did. The agreement he had insisted upon, ironically, to protect his future earnings, included a fidelity clause that would prove to be his undoing. While Gregory planned his exit with Cassandra, I was building my case. I consulted with lawyers. I documented every hidden transfer. I gathered evidence of their relationship. I prepared divorce papers. I organized everything perfectly, knowing Gregory would want to wait until after Amelia's graduation to avoid ruining her important day. What he did not foresee was that I would serve him the divorce papers the morning of the graduation before his scheduled announcement, yet the documents were still safely filed in court records, not yet accessible to him. What Gregory failed to realize was that I was always 3 steps ahead. I did not return to the restaurant. Instead of returning, I drove to our house, a large colonial-style home in the historic district of Augusta that we had purchased 15 years earlier. This was the residence Gregory had already promised to Cassandra, according to text messages he did not know I had seen. I parked my car in the driveway and calmly entered what had been our shared home for over a decade. Everything looked the same. The family photos on the shelves, the antique grandfather clock that belonged to my father, the old fabric sofa where Gregory and I had once imagined our future together. Despite this, everything had changed. I went upstairs to the master bedroom and opened the closet. Gregory's clothes were already packed in suitcases, hidden in the back, ready for his planned exit the next day. I found his predictable habits amusing. He had always been meticulous about clothing, but negligent about the important things. My phone vibrated constantly with messages from friends at the restaurant, from Amelia, and also from Gregory's sister Diana, who had traveled for the graduation. I responded only to my daughter. I am okay. This is not your burden to carry. Enjoy your graduation party. We will talk tonight. I love you very much. I had protected Amelia from the truth for several months, not wanting domestic conflict to overshadow her final semester. She would be upset that I hadn't told her, but I knew she would eventually understand. Amelia had inherited my practicality along with her father's charm, a powerful blend that had helped her graduate with honors. 3 hours later, I heard Gregory's car in the driveway. The front door shut with force. "Bianca!" he shouted, his voice echoing through the house. "Where are you?" I was sitting in the living room, calmly reviewing data on my laptop. I closed it as he stormed in, his face flushed with anger, the package clenched in his hand. "What does this mean?" he demanded, shaking the papers. "You gave me divorce papers on this day of all this?" I thought it fit well with your plans, I replied calmly. "You wanted to start your new life. I am just helping to facilitate the transition." "You had no right to." "I had every right," I interrupted him, my voice firm. "Just as you had every right to choose Cassandra." "We all make choices, Gregory." "The prenup expired years ago," he stated, his tone suddenly triumphant. "Any lawyer will tell you that." I allowed myself a small smile. Actually, it hadn't. Section 12 specifically states that the fidelity clause remains active for the duration of the marriage. Your attorney should have made that clear, Tia. Wait. You didn't consult one, did you? The color drained from his face as the reality sunk in. The premarital agreement he had demanded to protect his potential wealth would now cost him everything. The house, the vacation property in Savannah, his share of our retirement funds, his grand gesture at the restaurant had just become the most expensive statement of his life. "You can't do this to me," Gregory said, sinking onto the sofa. "We built this life together, and you chose to end it," I responded. "Just not in the way you planned." Gregory's phone buzzed repeatedly in his pocket. He glanced at it, then ignored it. Cassandra, no doubt, wondering where he was and why he wasn't following through on their carefully orchestrated plan. "You have always been calculating, Bianca." "But this is cruel," he said, trying a new approach. "What about our history? Does 28 years together mean nothing? I looked closely at him. This man I had loved deeply for nearly 3 decades. The man who had held my hand through 2 miscarriages before we had Amelia. The man who had once surprised me with a weekend trip to Charleston for our 10th anniversary. When did he change? Or had he always been this person and I had been too committed to notice? Our history meant everything to me, I answered truthfully. That is why your betrayal hurt so badly. His gaze softened for a moment, perhaps seeing an opportunity. Then maybe we can fix this. I made a mistake. People make mistakes. This was not a mistake, Gregory. This was an intentional plan lasting over a year. You systematically moved our money. You looked at property with her. You planned to announce our split publicly to humiliate me. His expression hardened again. You are exaggerating, am I? I grabbed my phone, opened the recording app, and played his own voice. After the graduation, I will tell her it's over. A public setting is better. She won't make a scene in front of everyone. Then Cassandra's voice, and she knows nothing about the finances. Gregory again, no. Bianca completely trusts me. That is her weakness. The blood drained from his face. You recorded our conversations. That is illegal. Not in Georgia when one person consents, I replied. And not when it happens in your own home. I did not record your intimate moments with Cassandra. I am not heartless. Just the conversations about your plans to defraud me financially. Gregory stood up suddenly, agitated. I need to make some calls. Of course, I said. Your lawyer might be a good start. I will be staying at Diana's tonight. Diana's house? He said haltingly. My sister's house? I nodded yes. She is actually quite upset about your behavior. She was the one who first saw you and Cassandra together last December. She didn't tell me immediately. She confronted you first. You promised her it meant nothing, that you would end it. When she realized you hadn't, she came to me. This was yet another surprise he hadn't anticipated. Diana and I had always been close, but Gregory never imagined his own sister would take my side. Everyone is betraying me. A sighed softly. Ironic, isn't it? I picked up my handbag and a small overnight bag I had packed earlier. You have until tomorrow evening to remove your belongings from the house. After that time, the locks will be changed. As I walked toward the door, Gregory called after me, desperation in his voice. What about Amelia? Have you thought about how this affects her? I stopped, annoyance finally breaking through my calm facade. Don't you dare try using our daughter as leverage, Gregory. You certainly weren't thinking about her when you were planning your new beach life with Cassandra. His phone vibrated again. This time, he looked at it and winced. Problems? Primera, ask Kev. Cassandra is already at the apartment. She moved her things in. I couldn't stop myself from smiling. The apartment you put in both your names. The lease you signed last month. Gregory nodded yes, looking confused. You might want to check with the building management. That application was flagged for credit issues and never approved. The agent called our home number to verify information. I handled it myself. I left through the door, abandoning Gregory to face the first of many consequences. His perfectly planned new life was falling apart faster than he could comprehend. Diana lived in a charming, small home across town, near the college where she taught literature. When I arrived, she welcomed me with a fierce hug. I just heard from Amelia, she said, ushering me inside. Are you all right? I am better than I expected, I admitted, following her to the kitchen where a bottle of wine was already open. I never thought Gregory would make such a scene, Diana stated, pouring liquid into 2 glasses, in the restaurant, in front of everyone. He's lost his mind. It was meant to humiliate me, I explained, taking the glass. A public firing, so I couldn't fight back without looking unhinged. Diana's face darkened. My brother always had a flair for the dramatic, but this is beyond what I expected from him. We settled in her bright room, surrounded by potted plants and bookshelves. Diana had never married, choosing her independence and academic pursuits. Over the years, I had sometimes wished for her freedom. What did you put in that package that upset him so much? Ask it. I detailed the contents, the divorce filings, the evidence of his financial fraud, and most importantly, the prenuptial agreement that would leave him with far less than he had planned. The premarital contract? Diana said with amusement. I remember when he insisted on it. Dad had just given him that money for his first business venture, and he was so worried about protecting it. She laughed with bitterness. The irony is delicious. My phone made a noise. Amelia took a deep breath before answering. Mom, she said immediately, her voice strained. I am coming over to Aunt Diana's house. Sweetheart, you don't have to. I am already driving, she interrupted. Dad is telling everyone you've gone crazy, that you've been planning this for months. He's saying awful things. Of course, he was. Gregory always reframed stories to cast himself as the victim. Let him talk, I said. The truth will come out soon enough. 20 minutes later, Amelia arrived, still in her graduation gown, but with her makeup smeared from crying. She collapsed into my arms like she used to as a child after a bad dream. Why didn't you tell me? She asked, her voice muffled against my chest. I didn't want to ruin your final semester, I explained. You worked so hard for this day. She pulled back, wiping tears from her eyes. Well, Dad managed to ruin it anyway. We moved to Diana's living room, where Amelia finally heard the full story. How I had discovered the affair, the financial misconduct, and the plans Gregory and Cassandra had made. I knew something was off with Dad, Amelia admitted. He's been different, distracted, always on his phone. But I never imagined. None of us want to see these things in people we love, Diana said softly. My phone buzzed with a text message from Philip Anderson, my attorney. The electronic filing had been accepted. The assets I had targeted were frozen, pending the divorce proceedings. Gregory now had limited access to money enough for living expenses, but not enough to follow through on the property purchases he had arranged with Cassandra. I showed the message to Diana and Amelia. Good, Amelia said firmly. He deserves it. My daughter's loyalty was comforting. Yet I was cautious. He is still your father, I reminded her. Your relationship with him is separate from what is happening between us. Amelia shook her head. Maybe someday. But right now, I can't look at him. He hugged me this morning and told me how proud he was, all while planning to blow up our family hours later. The doorbell rang, interrupting our conversation. Diana went to answer it, returning moments later with a worried look. It's Gregory, she said. And he isn't alone. I braced myself as Diana led Gregory and Cassandra into the living room. Cassandra looked uneasy, shifting her weight from one foot to the other, her eyes darting around the space. She was 37, not quite a trophy wife, yet still 17 years younger than me. Wheat shoulder-length blonde hair, and the kind of confidence that comes from never facing real adversity. Gregory, on the other hand, looked furious. His earlier panic had turned into anger. Bianca, you need to stop this crazy nonsense, he demanded. Unfreeze the assets. We can talk this over like reasonable adults. Amelia stood up, positioning herself slightly in front of me. Maybe you should have tried being reasonable before announcing to everyone that you were leaving, Mom. Gregory's eyes widened, as if only just seeing our daughter. Amelia, this doesn't concern you. Doesn't concern me, she repeated incredulously. You blew up our family on my graduation day, and it doesn't concern me? Cassandra touched Gregory's arm. Greg, maybe we should go. He shook her off. No, I am not leaving until Bianca agrees to be sensible about this. Diana folded her arms. My sister-in-law seems to be the only rational person here. You are the one who created this mess, Gregory. I stayed seated, watching the drama unfold. For years, I had been the peacemaker, the one who solved conflicts and kept everyone happy. That role was exhausting, and I had finally quit it. The assets will stay frozen until the first court hearing, Primera Said calmly. That takes place in 3 weeks. The judge will determine proper asset division at that time. 3 weeks? Gregory sputtered. What am I supposed to do for 3 weeks? You have your personal account, I reminded him. The one you have been diverting funds into for the past year. That should be enough. Cassandra's head snapped toward Gregory. You have a separate account with how much in it? An interesting dynamic was emerging. Apparently, Gregory hadn't been entirely truthful with Cassandra either. Gregory ignored her question. This is vindictive, Bianca. This isn't like you. Maybe you never truly knew me, I replied, just as I clearly never truly knew you. Amelia turned her attention to Cassandra. Did you know he was planning to announce it like that at my graduation celebration? Cassandra had the decency to look embarrassed. I thought he was going to tell your mother privately. The announcement today was a surprise. Gregory gave her a dirty look. Cracks were already forming in their united front. I think you should both leave, Diana said firmly. You have upset Amelia enough for one day, Gregory pleaded emotionally. You understand that relationships change, don't you? Sometimes people grow apart. My daughter's expression hardened in a way I had never seen before. What I understand is that you are a coward who could ungive Mom the courtesy of a private conversation. What I understand is that you were stealing from our family while I was working 2 jobs to help pay for my college books because you said money was tight. Gregory turned pale. That is not how it happened. It is exactly how it happened. Amelia stopped him. Please leave, Dad. I can't look at you right now. The silence that followed was immense. Finally, Gregory turned to leave, Cassandra trailing behind him at the door. He paused and looked my way. This isn't over, Bianca. I will fight you on this. I met his stare steadily. You are welcome to try. After they left, Amelia collapsed next to me on the sofa, tears streaming down her face. I have never spoken to Dad like that before. I put my arm around her shoulders. Sometimes standing up for what is right hurts. Diana brought us fresh glasses of wine. To new beginnings, she said, raising her glass. In truth, I felt this ending was merely the start of something new. The first court date happened in a small courtroom on a rainy Tuesday morning. I arrived with my attorney, Philip, while Gregory showed up with a lawyer he had quickly hired, a young associate from a firm specializing in business law, not family issues. Gregory's poor choice of legal representation was another result of his rushed planning. The judge, an older woman with sharp eyes and no patience for drama, reviewed the prenuptial agreement closely. This document appears to be in proper order, she stated, looking over her reading glasses at Gregory's lawyer. Do you contest its validity? The young lawyer cleared his throat. Your Honor, we maintain the belief the contract has expired due to the length of time that has passed. Section 18 clearly states that the term is for the length of the marriage plus any legal proceedings. Stemming from its dissolution, the judge recited aloud, there is no expiration date specified. Gregory leaned forward to speak urgently to his lawyer, who looked increasingly distressed. Furthermore, the judge continued, the evidence of systematic fund transfers appears to violate the financial disclosure requirements in Section 23. She sorted through the papers, then looked up. I am ruling to maintain the freeze on shared assets pending a full financial audit. Mr. Caldwell's personal account will remain accessible to him. The family home will stay in Mrs. Caldwell's possession during proceedings, as stipulated in the prenuptial agreement's infidelity clause. Gregory's face turned dark red. This is unfair, he muttered quietly enough for me to hear. The judge fixed him with a stern gaze. Mr. Caldwell, I suggest you review the contract you signed more closely. This court will reconvene in 30 days for the final hearing after the investigation is completed. As we left the courtroom, Gregory caught up to me in the hallway. Bianca, please, we need to talk about this reasonably. 28 years together has to mean something. It meant everything, I replied. Until you decided it didn't. Primera wala at Hawaii, leaving him standing alone in the courthouse corridor, the weight of his decisions finally beginning to settle. News spread quickly through our social circle. Friends called daily, some offering support, others seeking information for gossip. I maintained a polite silence about the details, simply saying, Gregory and I are separating. These things happen. Meanwhile, Gregory's carefully built image was crumbling. The persona he had created, successful businessman, devoted family man, was irreparably damaged. The asset freeze meant he was unable to follow through on promises made to Cassandra. The beachfront property they had been planning to purchase fell apart. The expensive car he had put a down payment on had to be cancelled. 2 weeks after the hearing, Diana called me, her voice filled with amusement. "Have you heard the latest news? Cassandra moved out." While I wasn't entirely surprised, the speed was astonishing. Apparently, she found out that Gregory's business is not doing as well as he claimed. The large savings he talked about do not exist. She told her friend Jennifer that she refused to be linked with a man facing financial trouble. I couldn't help but laugh. It was always good at creating illusions. Meanwhile, I was rebuilding the financial security I had always maintained separate from our shared assets, which gave me freedom Gregory hadn't foreseen. I leased a small office downtown and began setting up the consulting service I had dreamed about 4 years. My first clients were 2 women going through divorces of their own situations. Word of mouth brought in more clients. I specialized in helping women understand their finances during major life shifts, divorce, widowhood, career changes. The work was immediately rewarding, in a way my corporate job never had been. Amelia, who had secured a position with a marketing company in Charleston, called me frequently. "I am so proud of you, Mom," she told me after I described my growing clientele. "You are helping people during their worst times." "I am just doing what I wish someone had done for me earlier," I replied. Preparing women for whatever might come. Being valued for my expertise instead of my support role was a unique and empowering feeling. The final divorce hearing fell on what would have been our 29th wedding anniversary, a fitting end to a chapter of my life that had lasted nearly 3 decades. Gregory arrived, looking worn out. I later learned that his business was struggling without my financial backing and guidance. Cassandra was long gone, now dating a real estate developer from Savannah. Most of our mutual friends had distanced themselves from him after learning the full story of his deceit. The judge upheld the premarital contract entirely. Gregory left with his personal belongings, his failing business, and the money in his secret account, which, after paying his lawyer, was barely enough to afford a small apartment. I retained our home, my retirement accounts, and 70% of our joint investments, exactly as the prenuptial agreement specified in cases of infidelity. The justice was poetic. The very document Gregory had insisted upon to protect it himself had become his ruin. As we left the courtroom, Gregory approached me one last time. "I made a terrible mistake," he sighed softly. "Is there any chance we could know?" I stopped him gently but firmly. "That door is locked." "I understand," he replied, and for once, I believed he did. "I hope you find happiness, Bianca. You deserve it." It was perhaps the first honest thing he had said to me in years. 6 months later, my consulting service, Caldwell Financial Changes, was thriving. I had moved from the small office location to a larger space and hired 2 assistants. I focused on helping women secure their financial futures, particularly through major life transitions. Amelia visited frequently, proud of what I had built. "Do you know what the irony is?" she asked during one visit. "If Dad had just been honest from the beginning, he might have kept half of everything." "Sometimes people can't see beyond what they want in the moment," I replied. The woman who had previously defined herself as Gregory's wife and Amelia's mother had found a new definition: consultant, business owner, and advocate. The package I had given Gregory at the restaurant hadn't just been my exit strategy. It had been the key to a door I never knew existed. Beyond it, I found not merely revenge, but restoration. By securing my financial future, I had also reclaimed something far more valuable: my personal sense of self.